The divine nature, as described in the readings of Cayce, transcends the limited interpretations commonly found in religious doctrines. While many traditions portray God as a separate entity, judging humanity from afar, Cayce revealed a more profound understanding. God as the ultimate creative force permeating all existence, the very source from which consciousness itself emerges. God is love, Cayce would often state, yet this simple phrase carried deeper implications than most realize. This love wasn't merely an emotion, but the fundamental creative energy binding the universe together. In thousands of readings given while in trance states, he consistently described a divine reality where separation is the grand illusion and unity the ultimate truth. What has been hidden from mainstream understanding is that the divine, according to these profound insights, isn't located in some distant heaven, but exists as the very fabric of reality itself. God, in this enlightened view, isn't a being, but rather the ground of all being, not a creator separate from creation, but the creative process itself manifesting through all things. This perspective shatters conventional religious boundaries, revealing why certain institutional powers have worked to suppress such knowledge. When humans recognize their inherent divine nature, external authorities lose their control over spiritual life. The divine becomes immediately accessible without intermediaries or gatekeepers. The relationship between God and creation, as revealed in these suppressed teachings, resembles more closely the relationship between an ocean and its waves than a craftsman and his handiwork. We are not merely creations of God, but expressions of the divine itself, temporarily experiencing the illusion of separation for the purpose of soul growth and the expansion of consciousness. This understanding transforms the purpose of human existence from one of judgment and salvation to one of remembrance and awakening. We aren't here to be tested or to earn our way back to God, but rather to remember our divine nature through the experiences of physical existence. The journey isn't toward a distant paradise, but toward the recognition of the paradise within and all around us. What religious institutions have often concealed is that divinity resides within each soul, making each person a living temple. The biblical phrase, "The kingdom of heaven is within you," takes on new meaning when understood through this lens. Heaven isn't a place to be earned, but a state of consciousness to be realized. The divine plan, according to these suppressed teachings, isn't about separating the worthy from the unworthy, but about the gradual awakening of all souls to their true nature. This process unfolds across multiple lifetimes, allowing each soul to experience the full spectrum of human existence on the path towards spiritual completion. Perhaps most revolutionary is the concept that God experiences reality through us. Our joys, sorrows, triumphs, and struggles aren't witnessed by a distant deity, but are experiences of the divine itself, individualized through our unique perspectives. This intimate connection means that even in our darkest moments, we are never truly alone. The material world, in this understanding, isn't separate from spiritual reality, but is rather spirit made visible. Every physical object, every natural process, every human interaction contains divine intelligence at its core. The separation between sacred and profane dissolves when viewed through this expanded awareness. While modern science has often positioned itself in opposition to spiritual understanding, Cayce's readings suggest that the deeper science probes into the nature of reality, the closer it comes to confirming these ancient spiritual truths. The quantum field bears striking resemblance to what mystics have called the mind of God, a realm where all possibilities exist simultaneously until consciousness interacts with it. This understanding of divinity transcends religious dogma without negating the value of religious traditions. Each faith tradition, at its esoteric core, points toward this same unifying truth, though the outer teachings often emphasize differences rather than commonalities. The suppression of this universal spirituality has served to keep humanity divided along religious lines. The nature of the human soul represents perhaps the most profound revelation in Cayce's work, a revelation systematically obscured from public understanding. According to these suppressed teachings, the soul is not simply a religious concept, but a metaphysical reality with origins that precede the physical universe itself. What has been hidden from common knowledge is that the soul, as described in the psychic readings, exists as a distinct entity outside the boundaries of space and time. Before its journey into physical manifestation, each soul existed in a state of perfect unity with the divine source, a spark of the Creator experiencing itself as an individualized consciousness, while still maintaining its connection to the whole. The soul's journey into physical incarnation wasn't the result of sin or punishment, as some religious traditions claim, but rather a deliberate choice made for the purpose of growth and experience. This understanding transforms our perception of human existence from one of exile to one of purposeful exploration. We are not fallen beings seeking redemption, but spiritual explorers, gathering experiences that contribute to the expansion of divine consciousness. Perhaps most startling to conventional thinking is the concept that each soul incarnates not once but many times, experiencing life through different bodies, personalities, genders, and cultural contexts across the vast expanse of human history. This cycle of reincarnation serves as the mechanism through which the soul achieves comprehensive development, mastering all aspects of human experience and resolving the karmic patterns it has created through its choices. What organized religion has often concealed is that between physical incarnations, the soul continues its existence in various dimensional planes that Cayce described as the other side of life. These intermediary realms serve as places of reflection, planning, and preparation for the next physical life. Far from being places of judgment, these realms allow the soul to process its experiences and choose the circumstances of its next incarnation based on what it needs to learn next. The soul maintains connections with other souls across multiple lifetimes, forming what Cayce called soul groups, collections of entities that journey together through various incarnations, sometimes as family members, sometimes as friends, sometimes as adversaries, but always serving as catalysts for each other's growth. These deep soul connections explain the immediate recognition or aversion we sometimes feel when meeting certain people for the first time. The multidimensional nature of the soul explains phenomena that science struggles to account for: near-death experiences, past life memories, psychic abilities, and moments of transcendent awareness. These are not aberrations or hallucinations, but glimpses of the soul's broader existence beyond the confines of the current physical incarnation. What has been systematically hidden from public awareness is that the soul carries with it the accumulated wisdom and experience of all its previous lifetimes, accessible through dreams, intuition, and altered states of consciousness. The veil of forgetting that occurs at birth serves a crucial purpose, allowing each life to be experienced on its own terms, without the overwhelming burden of complete cosmic awareness. The soul's ultimate destiny, according to these suppressed teachings, is not eternal residence in heaven or hell, but rather the completion of its developmental journey and eventual reunion with the divine source, carrying with it the richness of all its experiences. This process has been described as the return of the prodigal son in biblical metaphor, not a story of punishment and forgiveness, but of exploration and joyful homecoming. Modern neuroscience has struggled to explain consciousness precisely because it looks for its origins solely within the physical brain. The brain, according to Cayce's readings, functions not as the generator of consciousness, but as its receiver and interpreter, a biological instrument through which the soul's consciousness manifests in the physical realm. This explains why consciousness sometimes persists during clinical death, when the brain shows no activity. The connection between the soul and the physical body occurs through what ancient traditions have called the subtle energy system, chakras, meridians, and the etheric body, structures that modern science is only beginning to detect and measure. These energy centers serve as the interface between the soul's vibrational reality and the denser physical form, transforming spiritual energy into biological processes. Perhaps most revolutionary in these teachings is the understanding that the soul has access to multiple planes of existence simultaneously, though our waking consciousness is typically limited to the physical dimension. In dreams, meditation, and other altered states, our awareness can shift to these other dimensions, explaining the universal human experience of sensing realities beyond the physical. The implications of this soul-centered understanding of human existence are profound, challenging not only religious dogma, but also the materialist paradigm that dominates contemporary scientific thinking. If we are eternal souls having temporary physical experiences, rather than physical beings having occasional spiritual experiences, every aspect of human life takes on new meaning and purpose. Consciousness represents the most fundamental aspect of our existence, yet its true nature has been systematically obscured from public understanding. The readings of Cayce revealed that what we commonly perceive as normal waking consciousness is merely the surface layer of a far deeper and more expansive awareness, one that connects directly to the divine mind itself. What has been hidden from mainstream knowledge is that consciousness isn't produced by the brain, but rather flows through it. Like electricity through a television set, the brain doesn't generate awareness, but rather limits and focuses it into the specific bandwidth we experience as human perception. This limitation serves a purpose, allowing souls to fully immerse in physical experience without being overwhelmed by the vastness of cosmic awareness. According to these suppressed teachings, expanded states of consciousness aren't abnormal or supernatural phenomena, but rather glimpses of our natural state when the filtering mechanisms of the brain are temporarily bypassed. Meditation, prayer, dreams, certain plant medicines, and spontaneous mystical experiences all represent different pathways to accessing these expanded states. Cayce himself demonstrated this expanded awareness through his remarkable ability to enter trance states where he could access what he called the universal consciousness, a field of all knowledge past, present, and future. From this state, he could diagnose illnesses in people thousands of miles away, describe past civilizations with remarkable accuracy, and outline spiritual principles that aligned with the esoteric core of all major world religions. What powerful institutions have worked to conceal is that this expanded consciousness is available to all human beings, not just exceptional individuals or religious authorities. The techniques for accessing these states have been preserved in mystical traditions worldwide, from the contemplative practices of Christian monastics to the meditation techniques of Buddhist monks, from the ceremonial rituals of indigenous shamans to the breathwork of yogic traditions. The role of consciousness in creating reality represents perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of these teachings. Long before quantum physics discovered the observer effect, where the act of observation affects the behavior of subatomic particles, Cayce's readings described consciousness as the fundamental creative force in the universe. Mind is the builder, he would often say, explaining that thoughts and beliefs shape not only our perception of reality, but reality itself. This understanding challenges the prevailing materialist paradigm that views consciousness as merely an epiphenomenon of brain activity. Instead, it suggests that consciousness is primary and matter secondary, a view increasingly supported by leading-edge quantum physics. The material world, in this understanding, is more like a shared dream than an objective, independent reality. What has been kept from public awareness is that consciousness operates at multiple levels simultaneously. Our surface awareness, the conscious mind, represents only a fraction of our total consciousness. Beneath it lies the subconscious mind, which processes information, stores memories, and controls bodily functions without our conscious awareness. Deeper still is the superconscious mind, our direct connection to universal intelligence and the realm where inspiration, intuition, and spiritual insight originate. The dream state offers a nightly opportunity to access expanded consciousness, yet modern society has largely dismissed dreams as meaningless neural activity. Cayce's readings revealed that dreams serve multiple functions: processing daily experiences, providing guidance from higher aspects of consciousness, and sometimes allowing the soul to travel to other dimensions while the body sleeps. The systematic devaluation of dream wisdom represents a significant loss of spiritual knowledge. Altered states of consciousness achieved through meditation reveal that time, space, and individual identity are constructs of the physical experience rather than absolute realities. In deep meditation, practitioners report experiences of timelessness, boundless awareness, and union with all that exists. Direct experiences of the divine nature that religious institutions have often claimed can only be accessed through their authorized channels. What hasn't been widely taught is that consciousness exists in a spectrum, with different vibrational frequencies corresponding to different levels of awareness. Our normal waking state operates within a narrow band of this spectrum, while expanded states allow access to higher frequencies. The cultivation of compassion, forgiveness, and unconditional love naturally raises consciousness to these higher vibrations, explaining why these qualities are emphasized in all spiritual traditions. The practice of mindfulness, present moment awareness without judgment, serves as a fundamental tool for expanding consciousness. By observing thoughts rather than identifying with them, we begin to recognize ourselves as the awareness behind the thinking mind rather than the thoughts themselves. This shift in identification from content to context represents a profound spiritual awakening. Perhaps most revolutionary is the understanding that collective consciousness shapes our shared reality. When large groups focus their awareness on similar thoughts and emotions, whether fear and hatred or love and compassion, they generate powerful fields that influence the manifestation of events. This explains why periods of widespread fear often coincide with increased conflict and natural disasters, while periods of collective goodwill correlate with peace and harmony. The deliberate manipulation of collective consciousness through fear-based media and divisive rhetoric serves those who benefit from humanity remaining in lower vibrational states. Expanded consciousness naturally leads to recognition of our fundamental unity, dissolving artificial boundaries of nationality, race, and religion that have been used to control populations throughout history. The ultimate purpose of expanding consciousness is not to gain psychic abilities or metaphysical knowledge, though these may occur as side effects, but rather to remember our true nature as expressions of divine consciousness. This remembrance naturally transforms how we live, replacing fear with love, competition with cooperation, and separation with unity. Among the most profound revelations in Cayce's work is the understanding that time as we experience it, a linear progression from past to future, represents one of humanity's most persistent and limiting illusions. What has been concealed from public awareness is that past, present, and future exist simultaneously in what might be called an eternal now, a perspective that aligns with both ancient mystical teachings and the most advanced theories in quantum physics. According to these suppressed teachings, time is not an absolute reality, but rather a perceptual framework created by consciousness as it interacts with the physical dimension. Much like a film reel contains all frames at once, while the projector displays them sequentially, the entire timeline of our lives, and indeed of cosmic history, exists complete in higher dimensions, while our awareness moves through it sequentially, creating the sensation of linear time. Cayce demonstrated this transcendence of time during his trance readings, accurately describing historical events from ancient Egypt, Atlantis, and biblical times with a precision and detail that often contradicted conventional historical understanding, but was later validated by archaeological discoveries. He could also peer into probable futures, describing events that had not yet occurred from our linear perspective, but were already taking shape in the field of all possibilities. What established powers have systematically obscured is that all human beings possess this capacity to access information beyond the constraints of linear time. This ability manifests in phenomena that science struggles to explain: precognitive dreams, déjà vu experiences, spontaneous past life memories, and intuitive knowledge of future events. These are not supernatural anomalies, but natural functions of consciousness when it temporarily shifts beyond physical plane limitations. The illusion of linear time serves an important purpose in soul development, allowing for the experience of cause and effect, choice and consequence, and the sequential unfolding of learning experiences. Yet this purposeful illusion becomes problematic when mistaken for absolute reality, limiting our understanding of existence to a purely materialist perspective, where birth represents the beginning of life and death, its end. According to Cayce's readings, the soul exists in a realm where time operates differently, a higher dimensional reality where all incarnations exist simultaneously rather than sequentially. From this perspective, a soul might be experiencing lives in ancient Egypt, Renaissance Europe, and the 30th century all at once, with information and learning flowing between these incarnations outside our linear conception of causality. This understanding transforms our perception of past life influences on current experience. What appears as karma from past lives affecting present circumstances might more accurately be described as the multidimensional soul working on similar patterns across several incarnations simultaneously, with apparent cause and effect relationships existing because all these experiences are interconnected in the eternal now. Perhaps most revolutionary is the concept that through expanded states of consciousness, we can access what Cayce called the Akashic records, a complete energetic record of all events, thoughts, emotions, and possibilities across time and space. This cosmic database, described in various spiritual traditions as the Book of Life or Universal Mind, contains not only what we consider history, but also all possible futures branching out from each present moment. The implications of this non-linear understanding of time extend to the nature of prophecy and prediction. What appears as seeing the future might more accurately be described as perceiving the most probable outcome based on current energetic patterns and momentum. This explains why some psychic predictions manifest while others don't. The future exists as probability rather than certainty, responsive to shifts in collective and individual consciousness. Memory itself takes on new meaning when understood through this expanded perspective. What conventional science views as electrochemical patterns stored in brain tissue, the Cayce readings describe as consciousness accessing information that exists independently of the physical brain. This explains phenomena like children who remember previous lives, individuals with accurate memories of historical periods they couldn't have known about, and the remarkable cases of complete memories remaining intact despite substantial brain damage. The concept of eternal now transforms our understanding of spiritual presence. When mystics across traditions speak of being present, they refer not merely to psychological attention, but to aligning human awareness with divine perspective, a viewpoint outside linear time where everything is occurring simultaneously in an eternal moment of creation. Quantum physics has begun to validate these once esoteric understandings through experiments demonstrating that, at the subatomic level, time operates differently than in our macroscopic experience. Particles can influence each other instantaneously across vast distances. Quantum entanglement. Effects can precede causes. Retrocausality. An observation can alter the apparent history of particles. The delayed choice experiment. All suggesting that linear time is indeed a perceptual construct rather than an absolute reality. What established scientific and religious institutions have resisted acknowledging is that these quantum phenomena don't just apply to subatomic particles, but scale up to human consciousness. Our thoughts, intentions, and states of awareness can reach backward and forward in apparent time, influencing both past and future events from the fulcrum point of the present moment. This understanding of time has profound implications for healing. In Cayce's readings, he would often prescribe not only physical remedies, but also mental and spiritual practices that effectively reached across time, healing traumatic imprints from the past and drawing healing energy from future states of wholeness. This approach to healing recognizes that from the soul's perspective, all aspects of our multidimensional existence can influence each other outside the constraints of linear causality. Perhaps most transformative is the realization that if time is indeed an illusion of perception, then we are not moving toward divine reunion, but rather awakening to a unity that has never been absent. The journey of spiritual evolution might be better understood not as progress through time, but as the progressive lifting of veils that have obscured our awareness of eternal realities always present. The systematic concealment of these understandings serves those who benefit from humanity remaining trapped in limited perception. Religious authorities who position themselves as exclusive intermediaries to the divine, political systems dependent on fear of the future, and economic structures that exploit anxiety about scarcity and survival. The ultimate revelation in Cayce's work, and perhaps the most carefully guarded secret across millennia, concerns the fundamental nature of what we call reality. What has been systematically concealed from public understanding is that the physical universe we perceive through our senses represents not the primary reality, but rather a projection or reflection of a more fundamental spiritual reality that precedes and interpenetrates it. According to these suppressed teachings, the material world functions as a kind of divine simulation, not in the technological sense popularized by modern philosophers, but as a purposefully created environment designed for soul growth and experience. The physical dimension, with its apparent solidity and separation, serves as a temporary classroom where eternal souls can experience the consequences of their choices in a context where limitations of time, space, and materiality create opportunities for learning impossible in non-physical realms. What established powers have worked to obscure is that matter itself, when examined at its most fundamental level, dissolves into patterns of energy and information, vibrations in a unified field that modern physics calls the quantum vacuum and ancient traditions called the mind of God. The seemingly solid objects that comprise our world are revealed, upon close examination, to be mostly empty space, organized by intelligent forces into coherent patterns that our consciousness interprets as physical reality. Cayce's readings described this understanding millennia before quantum physics confirmed it, stating that all matter is spirit in motion. This perspective transforms our relationship with the material world from one of separation and exploitation to one of participation in a sacred process. The physical environment we inhabit is not dead matter, but rather living energy, expressing divine intelligence through infinite forms. Perhaps most revolutionary is the concept that consciousness itself serves as the bridge between spiritual and physical dimensions. Our awareness doesn't merely perceive reality, but actively participates in creating it through a process that quantum physics now describes as the collapse of probability waves and spiritual traditions have long called manifestation. We are not passive observers of a predetermined world, but co-creators engaged in a dynamic relationship with a responsive universe. The evidence for this spiritual understanding of reality appears throughout human experience in phenomena that materialist science struggles to explain. Synchronicities that defy probability, the measurable effects of prayer and intention on physical systems, the documented cases of spontaneous remission where belief transforms biological reality, and the consistent reports from mystics across cultures and time periods who directly perceive the luminous energy underlying physical forms. What has been hidden from mainstream awareness is that this understanding of reality as a spiritual projection doesn't negate the validity of scientific discovery, but rather provides the missing context that makes sense of scientific paradoxes. The observer effect in quantum experiments, the placebo response in medicine, the neuroplasticity of the brain responding to mental focus, all point to a universe fundamentally responsive to consciousness in ways that transcend materialist explanations. The concept of vibrational frequency provides a crucial key to understanding how different dimensions of reality interrelate. According to Cayce's readings, reality exists as a spectrum of vibration, with the physical world occupying the densest, slowest frequencies and spiritual realms, comprising progressively higher, faster vibrations. Our ordinary sensory apparatus detects only a narrow band of this spectrum, while expanded states of consciousness allow perception of these higher frequencies, explaining the consistent reports of light, energy, and radiance described in mystical experiences. This vibrational understanding explains why certain locations on Earth have been recognized as sacred sites across multiple cultures and time periods. These places feature energetic properties that facilitate easier access to higher dimensions, natural gateways where the veil between physical and spiritual reality grows thinner. The worldwide distribution of these power spots, often marked by ancient temples and stone structures, provides physical evidence of this multidimensional understanding of reality. Perhaps the most compelling evidence for reality as spiritual projection comes from the documented effects of collective consciousness on physical systems. Studies have demonstrated measurable changes in random number generators during events of global attention like 9/11, royal weddings, and World Cup finals. These effects suggest that, when human consciousness focuses coherently, it directly influences the quantum field that underlies material reality, exactly as would be expected if the physical world functions as a projection of consciousness. What religious and scientific institutions have often concealed is that ancient civilizations possess sophisticated understanding of these multidimensional aspects of reality. Archaeological evidence from Egypt, South America, India, and other regions reveals advanced knowledge of subtle energy systems, astronomical alignments that connected Earth to cosmic cycles, and technologies that worked with non-physical energies in ways modern science is only beginning to rediscover. The implications of this understanding transform every aspect of human existence. Health and healing appear in a new light, not merely as biochemical processes, but as realignments of the energy patterns that precede and organize physical manifestation. This explains why approaches like prayer, energy healing, and placebo effects produce measurable biological changes inexplicable within a purely materialist framework. Human relationships take on new significance when recognized as soul connections manifesting through physical forms. The intense attractions, challenging conflicts, and profound recognitions we experience with others reflect deeper patterns of soul affinity and karmic balancing playing out through the simulation of physical reality for purposes of growth and healing. Even death transforms from a terrifying finality to a transitional phase, the soul's graduation from one classroom to another as it continues its eternal journey. Near-death experiences, after-death communications, and the consistent reports from deep meditation all suggest that consciousness continues uninterrupted when it withdraws from physical form, simply shifting its focal point to higher vibrational dimensions. The systematic suppression of this understanding serves those who benefit from humanity remaining identified exclusively with physical existence. When people believe themselves to be merely physical beings in a material world, they become more easily controlled through manipulation of physical circumstances. Economic systems, political structures, and religious hierarchies all maintain power through exploiting fears rooted in material identification. The awakening to reality's spiritual nature doesn't lead to rejection of physical experience, but rather to a profound recontextualization that infuses everyday life with deeper meaning. Work becomes service, relationships become soul connections, challenges become growth opportunities, and the entire human journey transforms from random happenstance to purposeful spiritual evolution. The ultimate revelation lies in recognizing that what we call God or Source isn't separate from this creative process, but is the very substance and intelligence of reality itself, experiencing existence through infinite viewpoints simultaneously. We are not merely living in a divine creation. We are divine consciousness itself, temporarily focused through individual perspectives for the purpose of expansion, experience, and the joy of creation. If these hidden truths about God, consciousness, and reality have awakened something within you, don't let this moment pass. Subscribe now to continue this journey of spiritual discovery and access more profound revelations that conventional institutions have kept hidden. Leave a comment sharing which insight resonated most deeply with your soul. Remember, awakening happens in community. Your perspective might be exactly what another seeker needs to hear today. Hit subscribe, activate notifications, and join thousands of others who are reclaiming their spiritual sovereignty. The knowledge Cayce revealed wasn't meant to remain secret. Share this video and be part of spreading these transformative truths worldwide.